Joe Little, welcome to Freedberg Comes Alive.
Hello.
Hey, it's I'm your guest host, Jeff Kennedy. Thank you for inviting me. So we're basically turning the tables here a little bit. Looking forward to it. So uh, Joey, I call him Joey. Joe has reached out to me, I guess about 6 months ago, to start a little podcast recording, which has been very well received along some of our childhood friends and some of our uh, um, acquaintances in North Carolina, Winston-Salem. So here we go. We're going to ask Joe a couple questions. So, when is your first recollection of Friedberg and what that meant to you? And probably like Friedberg Estates is where we lived. It was named after the area in there in South Forsyth County. So, what's your first recollections of maybe Friedberg Estates and how we got to meet?
I don't remember I don't have any recollection of Friedberg or Friedberg Estates until we moved here. I guess I have a tiny recollection of visiting the house and meeting the shepherds, who lived here at my house.
Oh, you mean the Brinkleys?
Yeah, the Brinkleys, excuse me, the Brinkleys. I guess I met them briefly, the boys and the mom, and so that's my very initial memory, but that was very tiny. No, we just moved here, moved to Friedberg Estates,
What year?
and
What
so
year are we talking?
suddenly
Sorry to
here we
interrupt.
are.
Yeah, what year were we talking about, Joe?
77, 76 or 77.
Right. Yeah. So we're the same age. So we were in as you moved in. I remember you went to probably Griffith Junior High at the time, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I know that we were the same age then, but you're considerably older now.
I still have my hair.
I still don't.
Still looking good, man. $1,000,000, million
Yeah,
bucks.
$100.
And then you moved in, and then I remember going down there and kind of introducing, and I remember playing basketball because your dad kind of remember toward the back part of your garage had expanded the concrete there to make a basketball kind of court, mini court.
It took him a while because for the first year or so of our existence there, I went over to the Popes.
All right, yeah.
They had a basketball goal in the backyard near the woods, I guess at their shed,
Uh-huh.
and I would go over, invited myself, and they said sure. And so I'm the only one back there. The girls are not shooting. No one else is joining me much, and I'm just shooting and shooting and shooting. And I became a decent shooter because of the Pope's basketball goal,
Oh
and,
wow.
and just shooting 1,000 and 10,000 shots before we ever got a goal in our backyard.
Yeah, I remember you were kind of a man child. You accelerated quite quickly through our puberty, I guess you would call that. And I was still kind of a little. I still kind of a little guy, but remember we kind of met up, and you had on top of your basketball goal now was put on the backside of your dad's garage a Wake Forest bumper sticker that spread the word. And every time you'd make a shot, you'd say "spread the word," and that to me was a lot of fun. But yeah, so Friedberg Estates was one of the, I guess, major players in our, I guess, middle school kind of era and ultimately to high school. But as I recall, you were abandoned us maybe the 10th grade year, I think, and you went to our rival Reynolds, and we didn't talk to you for a while. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it was curious because I didn't move. I didn't move. Our houses didn't move. We were still 10 feet away from each other, and yet we went to different schools. And I feel the vast separation. Riddick Weber, who lived 100 feet from us in Davidson County, across the little tiny valley there, uh, was completely different from us because he went to a completely different school zone, had completely different interests, and yet He was going to Forsyth County for shopping and carrying on. And so I felt some of that dichotomy transferring to Reynolds and Paisley.
So anyway, well, great. So what's your so Joe Little? What's the next podcast? Are you going to these North Carolina ones are actually very relevant. That now you're kind of historically maybe in the later years someone could pull this up on an internet somehow or YouTube or podcast and look back at this. What's the next thing in your bag of tricks?
That's a great question, Jeff. I find, and this sounds silly, but it's not. I find that I'm training up folks to interview. In other words, there's 1,000 and 10,000 circles out there of people and 1,000,000 that could be elaborated, it could be elicited, could be shared and tightened in terms of micro communities. You have 10 and 20 communities that you've existed in and are part of. And theoretically, if you wanted to, if you had a Jones to, you could now be a host of that type of thing. Split screen, 15 minutes, the same type of thing. So I've been interviewing, I've been letting people interview me. I have no interest in chatting about myself. It's fun enough, but to let the Jeff Kennedys of the world become interviewers and to equip them. Ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, other than like Friedberg, to your point, as an aviator, I was a naval aviator and a fighter pilot, and then I transitioned that to the commercial airline business. As you get older, that little pyramid gets a little smaller, but then you find out that how we're interwebbed in some way, some experience that you may know someone that this other person knows, and then you have a shared kind of common bond in a way, right?
Yeah.
And that's very important. And I'm sure you find it in your line of work, mine as well. But that's absolutely right. So before we leave, how's your family? Your mom's still living in Freeburg Estates, right?
She is, yes.
Yep. So for those on the podcast, my brother is just right down the street from Joe's mom. He basically moved back into the house that we grew up in. So there's some continuity to the neighborhood. Let's see, we got the Davenport still there, or Miss Davenport still there, right? I think. Edwards, are they still around? I haven't talked.
Yes.
Okay. The Gowers are still there. The Hoods are still there. DeVay has moved. Her mom's moved on. But there's still some continuity, which is kind of cool, right? And who knows what it'll look like, 5, 10, 20 years from now. But we did make a difference, I think, in our community. We didn't run around and we weren't rascals, we weren't hellions. We probably had our fun, like you. And the last time we talked about trying to TP the dentist's yard, Brenda's still there, and yeah. For those on the podcast, yeah, Joe was kind of a little rascal in that area, but that's okay. We all had our, yeah, but a lot of fun. We had fun running around as kids, building forts and playing basketball and doing all those things kids should do, right?
We had seasons in the sun.
Right. So I think that group, that, like I said, that cohort group that we had actually did really well. I mean, very productive citizens in the community. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of malcontent or, things that you'd be unproud of, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to be proud of from the folks that came from at least our small neighborhood, but I think in general, the first South Forsyth County, the Friedberg area has a lot to be proud of, right? And
yes.
So that's what I'm glad to be a little bit of part of that.
Close us out, knucklehead.
All right. So I'm supposed to say, Friedberg Comes Alive. I think that's about the end, right?
Yeah.
We appreciate Joe being here, and look forward to having some more podcasts from you, man. You're a talented guy, and we really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you, sir.
All right.